Geeta Gopinath, who is a very respected global economist, has said something that should stop every Indian in their tracks. At Davos, where the conversation is all about investments and money, and many of our politicians, chief ministers have landed up there inviting people to invest in India, she has actually turned around and said India's biggest problem is air pollution and the rate at which it is killing people, sort of drawing attention to the fact that it doesn't matter what kind of investments you're talking about, nobody's going to want to come and live in the country if the air is poison. And it made me stop for a second and I paused all of the other conversations. And I said, she's right. Why would anybody want to come and live here? And the thing that Geeta Gopinath did not point out is it's not just the air that is poison, it is also the water. It is also the roads. It's also the medication. It's also the food. So many parts of living in our country is just simply toxic and dangerous at this point. I wanted to ask the question of what is going on in India and why is it, as Indians, we are constantly living on the edge of life and death? And is this something that could completely ruin our economy? Why has India become so unsafe? That's the video that we're looking at right now. Remember, like, share, subscribe, support us in any way you can. I'm grateful for all of the messages that you put in on yesterday's video on Donald Trump at Davos. We will do more analysis. I'm just waiting for the entire event to play out completely before we do another full breakdown of everything that's happening over there. Today, we're going to talk specifically about India, but I also want to thank those of you who signed up for our membership in the last 24 hours. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful, and I'm grateful to every single sort of message that you drop into our comment section as well. Let's first take a look at what Geeta Gopinath said at Davos. Now, before we play that bite, I want to point out to you, Geeta Gopinath is a professor at Harvard University, and she was also the chief economist at the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund. So she's very respected globally as an economist. And when asked about India's challenges for business in terms of ease of doing business and tariffs, this is what she said.
One of the areas I wanted to point out, which we usually don't talk about when you're talking about business development, is I want to talk about pollution. Mm-hmm. Pollution is a challenge in India. And if you look at the impact of pollution on the Indian economy, it is far more consequential than any impact of any tariffs that have been put on India so far. If you look at the annual cost to India's GDP of the level of pollution that you have, and it's not just the effect on economic activity, but it's also the loss in lives. I mean, the numbers are really large. Based on a World Bank study that was done, I think it was published in 22, about 1.7 million lives are lost every year in India because of pollution. That's 18% of the deaths in India.
Effectively, I mean, the thing that struck me from her statement was that she pointed out a World Bank study from 2022. This was 4 years ago, that said 1.7 million deaths in India happen every year because of pollution. That is 18% of the total deaths. Now, here's the thing that struck me. I know this data. I'm familiar with it. I've written about it. You're familiar with it. But it sounded far more stark when someone pointed it out on a global stage about us. It didn't feel good. It felt like we have a national emergency that we're completely ignoring. And it feels like that because it's true. The analysis of air quality data, in fact, over the last 10 years, from 2015 to 2025, shows something quite toxic. That every single major city in our country, there hasn't been a single city in our country over the last 10 years that has had acceptable clean air. And this includes Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Ahmedabad, Pune, Kolkata, Lucknow, Varanasi. So basically, it doesn't matter where you live in India, including cities like Bengaluru or Bangalore, that has sort of pretended to be safe in some ways. None of it is safe. The air is poison wherever it is. And one of the studies that came out of the University of Pennsylvania actually said that an analysis of 600 human brains collected over 20 years showed that if there is high air pollution, it actually leads to degenerative brain disease. So it literally degenerates your brain, which we should worry about, really, because people who are making the most important decisions about our country all live in Delhi, and they're being exposed continuously to really bad AQI and bad air. India accounts for 26% of the global deaths attributed to air pollution. 1.7 million deaths a year rising at 38% since 2010, happens because of air pollution. There was one Lancet report that came out that said air pollution, deaths due to air pollution will cost India 30 lakh crore rupees or $339 billion, which is about 10% of our GDP. Let me read that again, okay? It's a Lancet report that basically said the monetized value of premature mortality because of outdoor air pollution in India is $339 billion, 30 lakh crore rupees, or 10% of our GDP. Now, how does that work? Why will it cost us that kind of money? Because when people constantly fall sick, they don't come to work. When they fall severely sick, they aren't able to work at all. So then they are dependent on society to look after them. So you have a large population of people who are within working years, but they can't work because they're very sick. They have cancer, they have degenerative brain disease, they have other reasons that keep them from working. So other family members have to support them. Every individual who doesn't work within working age puts pressure on society and the economy. Then there are the healthcare costs and the number of cancer patients who are going to be showing up at AIIMS, the number of cancer patients who are going to be already showing up at Tata Memorial, because they're going to get sick and the government will have to look after them. Now, prevention is better than cure. We have been told from the time we were children in school, but it's not sinking in. We have not realized that if we find a way to clean the air, we can save not just money, we can save lives. But as we have found out in India over and over again, lives don't matter. Nobody cares about lives. Maybe they will care about money. Maybe they will care when Geeta Gopinath points it out on a stage at Davos, saying that, people are not going to want to invest in your country if they can't live in the country, and if living in the country is harmful for their health. Maybe this will make sense to the people making business decisions and the people making decisions for our country altogether, especially the ones who live in Delhi, where it is the worst of all. Like this week, Delhi crossed 800 AQI. The safe zone is 50. 800 is poison. Effectively, everybody who lives in Delhi, air purifier or not, is just poisoning themselves. I mean, we have journalists, we've said gas chamber, we've said you're smoking these many cigarettes, you've said you're making yourself very sick, everybody's ill, and none of it is making a difference. It doesn't seem to be making a dent to anyone that these are lives that are going to be lost. Maybe money that's going to be lost will actually make a difference, and one is hoping. Now, when I was listening to Geeta Gopinath speak, I realized that it's not just about the air. We are also writing stories about water. Remember what happened to Indore, and I'll come to that in a second, but Niti Aayog's Composite Water Management Index 2018, we don't have one since then. 2018 was the last one we saw. 2018 says 2 lakh people die every year in India due to inadequate access to safe water. By 2030, 600 million people face water stress. That's 40% of India's population. A lot of the water that are flowing in our rivers and our streams and our lakes and our wells and our ponds and our taps is completely unsafe, and that's because of, main reason, untreated sewage that is mixing in our water bodies, industrial effluents, broken pipelines, lack of sewage infrastructure, and agricultural runoff. Now, the Central Board for Pollution, the CPCB, has monitored water quality in 4,200 locations and identified 351 polluted rivers. How many rivers were there altogether that 350 of them are already polluted? The core point is here that water is a state subject, it's not a central subject, even though we have programs running from the central government like Clean Up the Ganga, which we have seen has not worked. When it becomes a state subject, the responsibility becomes diffused. And then accountability becomes optional because it's not my problem, it's not your problem. We saw it happen with the Yamuna in Delhi. Everybody's like, oh, it's coming from Punjab, it's coming from somewhere else. The other states are actually like polluting it, and that is the real problem. Now, India launched a Jal Jeevan mission, and it aimed to put tap connections for everybody. Now, apparently, after that mission, connectivity increased drastically. About 17% it was in 2019, it became 80% access by 2025. But access to water is not the same as safety of water, and the real proof comes in the number of people dead. Now, what happened in Indore? Indore, which has received award after award of being India's cleanest city, had 25 people die and many fall sick because sewage mixed with the drinking water. It it was apparently a 30-year-old pipeline that had not been maintained for a while. There were breaches, and there was a toilet that was built right above it that was leaking into the pipeline. Even though residents complained for months and nothing was done. Now, here's the thing, Indore is not the only place where this has happened. Gandhinagar in Gujarat, 100 suspected cases of typhoid linked to sewage leakage in the pipeline. In Delhi, there are residents who are complaining about foul smelling, visibly dirty water. So this is not an Indore specific thing. It's not a one-off. It's happening across the board. We've reported it repeatedly from different cities that the water that you are drinking is not safe. And we grew up with this idea कि पानी उबाल के पियो or put it through your water purifier and only drink water that has actually been boiled. But do you not brush your teeth with tap water? Do you not bathe with tap water? Do you not wash your plates with tap water? Then what happens? What sort of tap water are you washing your plates with if there is sewage mixing? And can we tell for sure that sewage is not mixing? Now, apart from sewage that causes sickness, there are chemicals in our tap water because of the kind of industrial effluents that are being allowed to be pumped into water bodies. When they go into rivers or they go into ponds and they go into lakes, they seep into the groundwater as well. And then the groundwater gets polluted. And then all the water that you're drinking gets polluted. While I'm saying this, I'm pausing because while I'm saying this, I realize that this is common knowledge. We all know this. And every time we do a story like this, I always tell my team, but doesn't everybody already know this information? Then why is it news? It's news because nobody is doing anything else about it. We talked about air being poison and water being poison. I guess what, your food is poison as well. And I'll tell you why. Now, you'll remember the masala story. Last year in April, Hong Kong suspended MDH and Everest for having ethyl oxide, a chemical residue with a carcinogenic cancer risk in those masala powders. Singapore also recalled Everest's fish curry masala, and they said that basically there was a problem with the masalas, the packeted food. And again, in India, we think that if you buy packeted food, there's going to be safe. But apparently, that's not true. Also, we know that the labeling on most of the food is wrong. When they say it only has this much sugar, in reality, the sugar is a lot more. Made in India food is causing red flags all over right now. There are big issues also if you're eating chicken, for example, of the antibiotics use that is being used right now in farmed animals because of drug residue remaining in what you actually consume, antimicrobial resistance, making infections harder, harder to treat. And this is not speculation. I'll give you a study. The Center for Science and Environment study dated July 2014 found antibiotic residue in chicken and flagged widespread misuse in poultry supply chains. And because of the pressure just increased in November last year, the FSSAI, which is our food and food safety regulator, announced a ban on the use of antibiotics in the production of food animals. So ban of antibiotics in milk, meat, poultry, and aquaculture, expanding the rules beyond just processing. So we have to be careful about what you're buying, what you're eating. And then there is, of course, the counterfeit, contaminated, adulterated food, paneer, cream, milk, ghee. If you happen to be vegetarian, food safety authorities in Indore is actually developing a reputation. Just in this month, in January, seized 600 kilograms of suspected food items, including paneer, cream, and ghee, in a raid that found to be extremely unhygienic manufacturing conditions. Again, this was not a one-off. In fact, the Food Safety Authority, which is the FSSAI, has an Instagram handle that you must follow, where they regularly show these visuals of massive containers of paneer that they're seizing because it's counterfeit. It's not real paneer. It's mixed with other contaminants, so it's mixed with, adulterated with other things. Ghee that is counterfeit, cream that is counterfeit. There's one visual where you can see these guys actually opening up these packets and chucking the stuff into a river. Basically going from problem number 3 back to problem number 2 about contaminating our waters. So there's a problem of pesticide use also. There are pesticides still being used in India on our grain in farmlands that are banned all over the rest of the world. Antibiotic residue, unhygienic manufacturing, rampant adulteration. So the danger is not just in the air that you breathe or the water that you're drinking, it's also in the food that you eat. And let's not forget, of course, the medicines that you might consume. The WHO raised a deep concern over the gaps in India's drug safety regulation. And I'm not even going to get into the story about how things are available over the counter without a doctor's prescription that should not be available at all. But you'll remember 20 children died in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan after taking a cough syrup that had ethylene glycol in it, which is an industrial solvent. I mean, beyond contamination, this is something much bigger. These are fake medicines. There was an Indian Journal of Pharmacy Practice that was published that said that between 12 and 25% of the pharmaceuticals sold in India are believed to be fake pharmaceuticals that are sold in India. And so that is not safe either. And then, of course, how can you forget of what happens? And this is all stuff that can happen to you when you're in your house. What happens to you when you leave your house and get on the road? The recent story of Yuvraj Mehta, 27-year-old young man driving his car who plunged into that 20-foot deep pit in Greater Noida in the fog. And I watched that story over and over again, and I just could not digest the information that is coming from there, where satellite images have shown that that water body has existed since 2021, over 3 years, unsecured, unbarricaded, not drained out. Repeated red flags raised about the fact that it was dangerous. A truck had crashed there earlier, nothing had changed. And the worst part about it is, even in the outside chance, in that case, the police came on time, the fire brigade came on time, they were too scared to do anything because it was too cold, it was too dark, they didn't know what they wanted to do, they were not adequately trained. And this is the biggest problem with India, the fact that lives are so abstract and so disrespected that your first responders are not trained for first response. So you'll call the fire department, they don't know what the hell to do because they're not trained to save you. And so this young person died for a completely avoidable reason, and avoidable on multiple counts. They shouldn't have been water there to begin with. They should have been barricading. They should have been safety signs put up. The fire department should have known how to rescue him. They should have been able to, they should have had the equipment, the guts, the gumption, whatever it took. A completely avoidable death of a young person. And this has become so commonplace in India. You know, the Union Minister Nitin Gadkari has said that 1.8 lakh people die every year in road accidents in India. It's the highest number in the world. It's just negligence. But why does this keep happening in India? One of the theories I want to present to you is the scarcity mindset. You hear this a lot, right? What is the scarcity mindset? The scarcity mindset is, in India, I don't stand in line. And by I mean all of us. The mindset that we've grown up with is that it will run out before I get to the counter. So if I stand patiently in line and wait my turn, we're going to run out of material before I get to the counter, and I will not have enough. And I have to find a way to cut the line, to get ahead of the line, to get what I need today before everybody else, because that is the only way to ensure survival, that there isn't enough and could be taken away from me at any moment. So your brain stops thinking long term, and it's thinking only how to survive today. How do I get past today? And it doesn't matter, even people who have made a lot of money are constantly thinking, what if I'm stopped from making money in the next minute? And a very interesting person pointed this out to me. What if I'm stopped from making money in the next minute or in the next day? So I need to make as much money in every possible minute constantly and not think long term in any way. So India is one of the biggest breeding grounds for the scarcity mindset, and not because Indians are wired that way, it's because for decades our lives have been completely uncertain. One illness can bankrupt a family, one job loss can collapse a household, a child's future depends entirely on only one exam. How is that possible? How can that be the reality? Basic public systems constantly fail us. Constantly. We expect our public systems to fail us. Healthcare, policing, clean water, safe roads. Nothing works, and we don't trust the system at all. So we believe that the only way to actually stay alive in this country is to protect yourself and protect your family. And how do you do that? You do that by constantly trying to make more money and by putting as much brick and mortar between your family and the real city. So you live in gated communities, you drive cars, you never access public transport, you never walk on the road, you never use a public park. You buy air purifiers, you buy water purifiers, you do whatever you can to keep your family safe from the mosquitoes, from the air, from the gadda, from everything, right? This results in two things. One, because of the privatization of these spaces and the fact that you're only focused, as by you, I mean the people who watch my videos, and I know who you are because of YouTube. I know that you have access, you have voice, you have education, you have very powerful jobs, and you have the ability to say something about injustice if needed. But your attention is focused right now on separating yourself from everybody else as much as possible. I'm not holding it against you, I'm just analyzing the situation. And then what happens is the people who are actually left walking the roads, taking the public transport, using the public spaces, dealing with the garbage, the sewage, the squalor that we live in, those people have no access. They don't understand their rights. They don't know who to complain to. They don't know what it is that they can do. So the more we sort of cloister and move these two parts of society away from each other, the less we will be able to save our spaces. A lot of people, we keep asking, why is India covered in garbage? Why don't we have public spaces like everybody else in the world? They have parks that children can run in. They have, such great public transport. They have such great spaces because the people who actually have ability are not using any of our public spaces. We're cloistering ourselves more and more away because our public spaces are so unsafe. And because they are unsafe, it only gets worse when we do this. So it's a cycle that we have built into ourselves, which is that because there's a scarcity mindset, because there's a system that I cannot trust, we've sort of abdicated and moved away from it. And as a result, we have deeply corrupt IAS officers doing whatever they feel like. There's no accountability among politicians. There's no accountability among the officers making these decisions. Nobody cares. I mean, it astounds me how deeply in their bones, to the core of their beings, they don't care about us. They don't care about the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking, the number of lives that will be lost because of it. The reactions only come after there is a death toll. Then suddenly the barricades will show up from somewhere. Then suddenly everybody will be like, oh, let's find a way to be. I saw a video today. Apparently the NDRF is training on how to rescue the next person who falls in that water after one person has already died. And that is always the case. There has to be a stampede. People have to die for anybody to react. There has to be some cough syrup in which people die for anybody to react. And even then, they will just go after the lowest hanging fruit, which is the perpetrator of that crime. They will never, I mean, God forbid there is a famous person involved, that person will keep getting summoned for questioning. So that actor Vijay is still being summoned for that stampede, whereas he had nothing, like he didn't actually organize it. But nobody is asking how can we scientifically avoid stampedes in the future in this country everywhere? Can we put up a process of due diligence on the number of people, on the amount of space, water, air, walking, and all of this information is easily available. Nobody wants to solve that problem. Let's just keep summoning the famous guy and keep questioning him like that is going to solve another stampede from happening, which is not going to happen. Process, unfortunately, is a regular casualty to culture. And the culture in our country right now is scarcity. Is to just look after just us and not really care about the spaces that are publicly owned or collectively owned by all of us. At some point, as citizens, we're going to have to start reacting bigger to what's happening. There's going to be a day when the poison will catch up with us. Let me know what you think. What is your theory as to why life has such poor value in India and why we're so unsafe all the time?